welcome or welcome back to my channel. It's Erica. One of my goals for 2025 is to get a handle on the amount of series that I'm reading at one time. Frankly, it's gotten out of hand. So what I'm gonna be doing over the year is to try to focus on getting some of these series. I don't know, if I can't reduce the number of series that I'm reading, I want to at least reduce the number of books that I have still to read from the outstanding series. So it's going to be one of the things that I'm trying to focus on this year, is getting that down. Ideally, this is going to be a multi-year project. This is not going to happen in 1 year. When I talk about the figures in just a minute, you're going to understand why it's not a short-term thing. But ultimately, my goal in the next few years is to get down to maybe 5 to 10 ongoing series at one time, maybe max. I'm gonna provide a little leeway in that for series that are still being written by authors. So there's, books that just haven't been written or published yet. But as far as series that are completed, series that I'm not caught up on, I guess I should say, limiting that to 5 to 10 so that I can have everything fresh in my mind. I'm not going into, a subsequent book in a series and being now who are these people and what just happened in the last one? I don't like that, and I that's not my preferred way to go about reading a series. I'm also, though, I'm not a person where I can just typically sit down and read books back to back that are in a series. I typically will need some kind of break, a rotation. So my ultimate goal will be to just have a limited number of series that I'm reading at once. Like I said, 5 to 10. And, I can do rotations. I can throw in other books for standalones or whatever. But not this, what feels right now unwieldy. And so you know what, let's talk about the numbers. Let's talk about the numbers right now for what I've got going on, because I looked them up. So the beginning of 2025, because I keep a spreadsheet of the series that I have ongoing. The beginning of 2025, I had 27 series in progress. What that means is that I have read at least one book in the series, and I plan to continue reading the series. So January 1st, that was my number of in progress series, was 27. What that meant, because I went through and I counted them all, that was 120 unread books out of 27 series. And you know what? That's kind of a skewed number, because there's one series I'm reading. It's the Chronicles of St. Mary's. That's got just a stupid number of books in it, but also a ton of short stories. So this number is a little skewed, just because of that one series having so many. So that was where I started, January 1st, 27 in progress, 120 unread books. With filming right now, unfortunately, those numbers have increased. Because I had to add a few books to my list. So I added Mistborn Era 2, because I'm gonna be reading, I'm reading through the Cosmere in a specific order, and I'm gonna be reading most, if not all, of the Mistborn Era 2 books this year, so I added it in my list. I'm going to be continuing the Broken Blades series by May Cortland. I read 5 Broken Blades, and I do plan to read 4 Ruined Realms, and I don't know how many books it's going to be. I think at least a trilogy, maybe more. So we'll see how many books I end up with in that one to read through it. The Taxman series by David Hankins. I put this on the list because it is, from what I understand, it's a series. I received the second book in his Death series. It's the second book is Death and the Dragon. I believe it's a sequel to Death and the Taxman, so as of right now, it is on the series list, but I guess when I read it, if it's not really series-like, I guess I'll take it off. But I added in the Chronicles of the Black Gate, because that is a book that it's a series. I believe it's 5 books in the series. I'm reading it as part of my backlog reading, so now I've got that series on here. And then I also moved Travis Baldry's Legends and Lattes from my finished, like, I finished it to, no, I didn't finish it because there's gonna be a third book coming out with Legends and Lattes this year, and so obviously I will be reading it. So it is now back on the list, although I am current on it, so at least it's not like part of my backlog to get through. Anyway, after those additions, my stats have changed a little bit. So I now have 32 series in progress and 133 unread books. So yeah. So yeah, this is going to be one of my goals this year. Try to either reduce the number of series that I have pending, or at the very least, reduce the number of books that are on my unread portion of my series reading. In this first, I don't know, episode, installment, whatever, I'm going to be reading LIRAEL by Garth Nix. It is the second book in the Old Kingdom series. It's a YA fantasy series. I had a great time reading Sabriel, and so I'm going to continue the series now with LIRAEL. I'm also going to be reading Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters. That's the second book in the Percy Jackson series as well. And then my final book that I'm going to be reading is also a second book in a series. I did not plan for all three of these to be book 2, but here we are. Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands, and I've been meaning to read that because I really enjoyed the first one. You know what? Obviously, I really enjoyed the first books in all three of these series, or they wouldn't still be on the series in progress list, right? They would be on the like DNF list. So it goes without saying, I enjoyed all three of these series, and I'm going to continue the reading. This video may have some spoilers. I'm gonna, if they are spoilers, it'll be just like probably spoilers for like the first books rather than spoilers for these books themselves. If I do end up talking about spoilers for these 3 specific books, I will make sure to give some kind of a warning so that you're not like, oh no, I didn't know that like this specific book you were gonna say a spoilery thing, because I hate spoilers and I don't want to be spoiled. So fair warning, there's probably gonna be spoilers for the books that were first in these respective series, but I will try not to do spoilers for these books themselves, if that makes sense. All right, so let us go now along on our journey. I'm gonna start with LIRAEL, which I won't even lie, I have already finished it. However, when I finished it, I don't think I knew what my second book or third book was gonna be, but I do now. So it'll be LIRAEL first, and then I'm gonna talk about Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters, and then after that, I am going to be reading Emily Wilde. At the end, you'll see me back, and we'll talk about whether I'm gonna continue with all of these series, if they're gonna stay on my in progress list. Last night I finished LIRAEL by Garth Nix. It's the second book in the Old Kingdom series. I think there's like 6 books in this series maybe. It's kind of a long one. It's YA fantasy. Sabriel is the first book in the series, and it follows a teen girl named Sabriel. Her father is Abhorsen, or the Abhorsen. It's both a title, but also just kind of turns into the name that like everyone calls you when you are that person. So her father is the Abhorsen, and she's off at school. She hasn't really ever had any kind of significant relationship with him, but she's wanted to. She's been off at school, and suddenly she learns that he is missing, and it's kind of a big deal because what he has the ability to do is like battle necromancers and the dead and all kinds of like evil things, and he serves an important purpose for the people, and he is missing suddenly, and it's a big deal. So she sets out on an adventure to find him, and that's what happens in the first book. You know, she's a teen. The second book, we get a time jump. I think it starts off jumping ahead by like 14 years. So Sabriel is an adult now. She is no longer the focus of like the main character in LIRAEL, if one could not tell by the name of the book, because it's LIRAEL. LIRAEL is one of what I would say is the two main characters in this book. We also follow Sam, who is Sabriel's son. So Sabriel does still play a role in the second story, but she is kind of a background character in this one, which was surprising. And I didn't know how to feel about it at first. I was like, but wait, I just got invested in Sabriel throughout the entirety of the first book. Things got super interesting in there, like the battling of the dead, and, you know, Sabriel taking the title of Abhorsen. I struggle with that word, let me tell you. And now we, I guess, don't really care about Sabriel anymore, and we're just focusing on the next generation of youths, which, you know what? It's a YA fantasy, so I could understand why we would change who the main character is for this book, I suppose, because Sabriel at this point is like in her 30s. So I guess we must follow the next generation. And I dealt with that shift, and I committed to trying to be invested in LIRAEL and Sam. I didn't really like LIRAEL starting out. She's a very odd person, and you know, I understand like why she is the way that she is. She feels very different from everyone that you know, she lives with, that she works with. She's part of this sect, the Clare, and it's a group of almost entirely women who live like in this mountain glacier area, and they all, well, they're all supposed to possess the sight, like the ability to see future events, except LIRAEL does not, and she keeps hitting her birthdays. You know, she's a teen, and by each birthday she thinks, well, I should have the sight by now, but she doesn't. And in, you know, in the sect that she lives in, people are separated by, you know, a full member, a full Clare, or not. And the ones who are not, like, they don't have the sight yet, are children, because as the Clare, or as the women or girls in this group age, they get the gift of the sight. But this has not happened for LIRAEL, and she's very depressed. She feels very separate from everyone else, like she doesn't really have a space in her home, which, you know, I can understand, to be surrounded by all these people who, through no control of their own, get this thing that you really want, and you have no way to get it yourself. It's just kind of a roll of the dice, the will of the universe. You can't do anything about it. You just have to wait and see, no, oh God, no pun intended, you know, if you're bestowed with the sight. So I get that. She was very angsty in the beginning of the book, which, you know, she's a teen girl, so like, I guess that tracks. I will allow it. I was gonna say we were all teen girls once, but I guess not all of us were, but I mean, I was. So I remember, you know, teens in general, angsty, and LIRAEL was angsty to start out this book. We also follow Sam. Like I said, he's the son of Sabriel, and so, you know, he's a prince of the kingdom. He's been going to school outside of the kingdom, but he still comes back, right, for like normal breaks and everything. His mom, Sabriel, and his father, who I can never remember his name, but he was the prince who is now the king. He's the prince from Sabriel, the book Sabriel, not the character Sabriel, that she woke up from being like cursed as a statue. Well, he is the king now, and Sabriel is his wife. So, you know, they're together, and they have a few kids. 2 kids, actually. Why did I say a few? I believe they've only got the 2. But anyway, so they've got children now, and, you know, the king and Sabriel, they're off doing their thing, because Sabriel is the Abhorsen now. So she's off doing Abhorsen things. The king is off doing king things. And so Sam Sam is supposed to be the person in waiting, but he is like not into that idea. He doesn't want it. It freaks him out. It's not just he has no interest, like the idea of being the person and like going into death and battling the dead and necromancers like terrifies him, which I feel like is a pretty reasonable fear. So we follow both Sam and LIRAEL, different perspectives throughout the book until you know, at some point some of the characters within this book, like their goals come together, so they overlap. So we see some of the characters start to play a role in each other's lives in a way that they didn't before. Overall, I thought that this was a good installment. It took me a while though to get into. I wasn't immediately into it like I was with Sabriel, and I think it was just because I wasn't expecting it to take a completely different turn and do the time jump and follow characters that are like brand new, when I was like, well, but wait, I still want to know more about like Sabriel. What's going on over there? I want to see what she's up to now. We didn't really get that. I don't know that we're gonna get that with subsequent books, because the ending of LIRAEL, which I will not spoil, I could see Garth Nix, like the author, wanting to take this in a direction where we time jump again, and I don't know where we would land if we do take that time jump, which characters might still be around, or what events might be unfolding if we do take a time jump. I could also see him not time jumping because we left on somewhat of an urgent cliffhanger that I feel, not fully, but I mean cliffhangery, and it needs to be addressed. I don't know that that could necessarily hang like that for years, you know, in world without something relevant happening. So I could see it going either way. We time jump or we don't. So I don't really know what the subsequent books are going to be, like who they're going to focus on. I try to go into books. Honestly, I don't even like to read the dust jackets anymore when it's something like this and I'm already committed to reading it. I'm the same way with movies. Like, I don't want to watch movie trailers unless I'm in the theater. Like, if I'm there at the movie theater to watch a movie, I love the trailers. Like, give me all the trailers in that scenario. But, you know, new trailer comes online and everyone's like, oh my God, the trailer. And I'm like, I don't want to watch it. I already know whether or not I want to see this movie, and at this point, trailers are like dropping what I would consider to be too many spoilers. And at this point, a dust jacket is honestly too many spoilers for me for so many books. I feel like publishers just put too much detail when they're doing the dust jackets for books anymore. So I haven't even read what the next book is going to focus on. I believe the next book is called Abhorsen, but I will put a picture of the next book cover up here so we can know for sure. But I feel like it's Abhorsen. Editing Erica, please validate me, because I'm gonna feel really ridiculous if it's not, but I feel like it is. And so yeah, I'm definitely going to be continuing the series. I really like the way Garth Nix writes. I feel like he does a good balance of focusing on the characters, which I want to know more about, but also just kind of subtly developing the world in a way that feels very natural, not like jamming it down your throat. You know, that's hard to do, I think. God knows I couldn't do it if I was trying to build a fantasy world. I'd be like, here, let me just info dump on you. But Garth Nix, I think he does a good job at not doing that and just naturally allowing things to unfold. And it was especially, you know, when we're following a teen character like LIRAEL in this book, who is learning about magic, learning about the world. Like, she works in a library and she's discovering all these things that she didn't know about. We're learning along with her. Like, I love that. I feel like that's probably my favorite way for a world, like info sharing from the author, because I can learn along with the character in a way that feels natural, rather than the author just being like, ooh, here's all of my world building information. So I really did like that. I did end up really liking LIRAEL as well, even though, I mean, I don't know, again, there's so much angst, but I will forgive her. She gets a pass. She's had kind of a rough go of it. And so while I liked Sabriel more just in general as a book, I thought that this one was more complex really in the plotline as it's developing. Sabriel, pretty straightforward plotline, but LIRAEL, I felt like as though it's multiple writers. No, Garth Nix did a good job at bringing in more characters to develop along at the same time, and he upped the stakes for what we had in Sabriel. Because while Sabriel did have some high stakes, the stakes in LIRAEL feel much more like the world itself is under threat right now, and you know, something needs to happen to address that and fix it. And are they gonna figure it out in time? And so I am very interested to continue the series. And this one, I read part of it on my Kindle. I borrowed it from the library. I also listened to part of it on audiobook because my library had the audiobook of it. And I was so pleasantly surprised to hear that it's narrated by Tim Curry, because I love Tim Curry. So if you want a good audiobook, I mean, I don't listen to audiobooks that often, but I love Tim Curry. I will listen to him read anything, or say anything. I just love Tim Curry. If you also like Tim Curry and or you like audiobooks, then you should try the audiobooks of the Old Kingdom series by Garth Nix, because it was good. So I am going to pick up a portion. I don't know when it's going to be. Probably within the next few months, because there's so much going on in this. I'm trying not to drag it out too far before I pick up the next one, so I don't forget a lot of the nuance of what's going on. So that's my plan. Officially, I finished LIRAEL. I would say this one I liked a little less. This I would probably rate as like a 3.5 star as far as my enjoyment of it, but that's enough to motivate me to keep reading, so I will. And I don't know what my next update is gonna be here, because I don't know what I'm gonna read next in my series. So for you, it's gonna be like just a few seconds. I'm gonna pop up and be like, hey, I read this book in this series. But current Erica filming right now, has no idea what I'm gonna read next for my series reading. So it will be a surprise, and I guess I can't wait to see what I pick. I just finished Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters, which is, of course, the second installment in the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. I have to say, I really liked this book better than the first book, like noticeably so, for a number of reasons. I thought this one was a stronger entry into the series. This installment follows Percy as he goes on like a quest adventure to rescue his friend Grover from a dangerous situation that Grover has gotten himself in. Percy ends up going on this adventure with his friend Annabeth and a new friend Tyson that we're just introduced to for the first time in this book. We again see Percy like struggling to understand his relationship or lack of relationship with his dad Poseidon, and try to understand more about the world that he's found himself in with, you know, the gods and things being not what he thought they were for pretty much his entire life. He encounters new monsters and mythological creatures, or beings, I guess I should say, in the second book, and I think the author continues to do a really good job in presenting these things in a unique way. Like, he's not just introducing monsters or gods and having them be traditionally how we think of them from Greek myths. He's giving them like real personalities, and ironically he's kind of humanizing them. And so it makes them more fun to read about, because they're, I don't know, they're just kind of ridiculous. A lot of the gods and the creatures are kind of petulant and childish, but like they've got obviously so much history, but you know, behind them. Like, for example, Ares, the god of war, he's portrayed as kind of like this biker looking dude, and I don't know, I just think it's fun. I think it's a fun twist that the author came up with to portray the gods in a more human way, which, I mean, I guess it makes sense. You know, this is a series aimed at kids. It's probably a lot more fun, engaging, relatable for like middle grade readers to read about, you know, gods that they can imagine being part of the real world. I really enjoyed the pacing in this second book a lot more than the first book. The first book felt like we were just constantly jumping from, you know, different locations, new plot point, new character, just like boom, 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 boom. And I didn't think it was bad, but it felt like a speed run almost through the plot. And I mean, I understand why. It's because he had to do world building, introducing tons of characters and concepts, you know, and move a plot along at the same time. And he had to do this in a relatively few number of pages for middle grade readers. So I understand like why the pacing in the first book was what it was. And I don't hold that against the first book, but it definitely felt like, man, we're just like pedal to the metal. The second book though felt like it had a little, I don't know, room to breathe with how the pacing was going, because there was so much foundational work that happened in the first book that the author, I feel like, could kind of take a little bit more time to space things out in a way that it didn't just feel so rushed throughout the second one. Additionally, the plot throughout this second book felt a lot simpler than the plot in the first one. I mean, the plot in the second book is Percy needs to go save his friend, and there's developments in like the background overarching what I imagine is going to be like the series, not mystery, but there's some things going on in the background of the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series, and so there was a little bit of development on that. But the primary focus for Percy in this book was, I've got to go rescue Grover, and that's just what we saw him doing. I didn't feel like there was a ton going on outside of that. There was, again, things going on at the camp, things going on at Percy's home, but simplicity of the plot, I feel like, really benefited this book, being able to just like, okay, we crammed a ton of stuff into the first one. let's pause just for a minute, go a little slower, catch our breath. And I think it really worked. It worked to the benefit of this book. Just like the first book, where Percy does a bunch of traveling throughout the story, he did a lot of traveling here, but it felt a lot more reasonable. Again, it didn't feel as rushed, jumping from one place to the next. And it also felt like the things that he was being sent to do were adding to the plot, and they served a point. There was maybe only one location or like group of people that Percy dealt with, and we spent like a chapter on it, where I was like, I don't know really what the point of this was, except to have a little bit of fun introducing introducing Greek characters into the story, which, hey, that's fine if that's what we're doing. It didn't really seem to have a point beyond that, but I was like, I mean, it was entertaining enough, so it was fine. But I think the author does a decent job at choosing like what to show in the plot, what characters to bring in general. I think most of it is used pretty effectively to have a point to it. I ended up liking Percy a lot more in this installment than I did in the first book. I mean, I didn't dislike him in the first book, but we didn't really know him that well, and I think he's starting to come more into his own in this second book. He's getting more confident, you know, now that he's getting more knowledge and he knows that he's got skills. You know, he's able to accomplish different tasks, and he's got a support system going. So I think he's just becoming a more well-rounded character, and it's easier for me to be like invested in him and root for him when he's going off doing all these other things. And the new character, Tyson, his new friend, I really liked Tyson. I have not looked because I don't want to spoil myself, so I don't know if this is general consensus, but Tyson maybe was my favorite character in this book. I really liked him, and I'm really hoping that we get to see more of Tyson as the series goes on. He's such an innocent character, you know, which is kind of funny to say, because like if you've read this, you're gonna probably chuckle at that, but I mean, he's an innocent, and he's immediately loyal to Percy, which just makes it easier to root for him, like right from the get-go, because like he's immediately on Percy's side, in Percy's corner, backing Percy up. So you're like, you know what? I'm gonna root for Tyson too. I feel good about this guy. Unfortunately though, I still don't like Annabeth. I really disliked her in the first book. I just find her mean, which is terrible to say because like this is a little girl. Well, maybe in the second one she's not a little girl. I think they're like young teens now, aren't they? But I mean, she's just mean like all the time to everyone. She calls Percy names. Like I don't like her as a character. I know she's struggled a lot. Like she obviously had a really difficult life. I know why she is the way that she is. Like I get that. And I feel bad being like, I don't really like this kid, but I don't really like this kid. Maybe, I'm assuming the characters are going to continue to age as this story goes on because, you know, each story we seem to be going maybe a full school year. So presumably all these characters are going to age. Maybe she's gonna grow out of this behavior, but it's just not something that I like. In general, I don't like characters who are just like unnecessarily mean. Like, why you gotta call Percy names all the time? You're supposed to be friends with him. Like, why are you being like that? That's not nice. Unfortunately though, right now she's the only character that I don't know, I kind of actively dislike her. Again, I don't know if that's a popular opinion or not because I don't want to spoil myself. I haven't looked at like fandom opinions on her as a character. Maybe she's beloved and everybody else loves her and I'm the odd rando out being like, I don't really like this child, but I don't really like this child. However, I do really like Luke. I find him to be interesting. Kronos as well. I want to spend more time with them, but because of where the story is at, I'm not really surprised that we aren't really getting time or attention. Not as much as I would think would be really fun to do, but maybe as the story goes on, maybe we'll get more. I typically always want to know more about the villains. Like I want to see them chatting or plotting or actively doing like villainous things. And so I'm inherently always going to be like, give me more of the bad guys. Like I want to see more of what the bad guys are up to. And it also helps me to get emotionally invested in both sides, you know, both sides of the characters. So not just our main character protagonist that usually we're generally supposed to be rooting for, but I also want to be kind of invested in the villains too. So give me some more of the villains. I'm hoping we get to see more of them in the next book. To probably no one's surprise, it looks like Kronos is going to be like the overarching bad guy to the Olympian series, and maybe some of his minions thrown in too, but Kronos is like overarching bad guy. But there also seem to be some villains who are not really involved with Kronos, like the dangerous situation, right, that Grover was in this book. Like the beings that he was involved with in that situation don't really seem to be related to Kronos in any way. So I think it's we're gonna be seeing like the differentiation, right, of like Kronos is the background, Kronos of course like high stakes, bigger threat, but some short-term villains as well that maybe aren't related, but they still have to be dealt with. I'll be interested to see like when and how, and I guess if Reardon brings in Kronos to be like in your face primary antagonist that Percy is dealing with. I'm curious to see when that's going to happen. If it happens, I have no idea. Truly, I don't know anything about this series other than it's Percy who's a half god and he has like adventures. That's literally it. I went into this series knowing really nothing else than that, and frankly I prefer it this way. I like to go in mostly not knowing anything when I start a new book or series. I want to know as little as possible, so because I really like the element of like surprise. I want the story to lead me where it wants me to go, and I don't want to have like a lot of ideas already of where I'm going to be taken to. So that's all I know. I don't know if Kronos is going to be a bigger deal or not than he already is. I mean, I assume at some point things are gonna have to come to a head, but I don't know. but I'm gonna find out. Overall, I really enjoyed The Sea of Monsters. Like I said, I enjoyed it more than the first one. I thought it worked great as a palate cleanser. I read it between like two more serious books. Like I finished a serious book and I read Percy Jackson, and now I've just started another serious book, and it worked so good as just something that there are high stakes, but it's so much more lighthearted and just like a casual fun read, and it worked great. It worked great for that purpose. This installment really got me excited too to see what Percy's gonna do next, because like I liked him so much more in this book. I thought the pacing was so much better. I'm excited to see it continue. Hopefully the series continue like this one did, because if it's going to work perfectly for me just as a reader. This was the kind of middle grade book, just fantasy in general, like I can get really into, and it made me excited to read the next one. What is the next one? I think it's The Titan's Curse, something like that. That's going to be the next one that I read in this series. However, that will not be the next book that I read in this video. The next book that you're going to see me read is Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands. It's going to be the second book in the Emily Wilde series. So I am going to be starting on that one shortly, and I will be back with my thoughts. I finished Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands, and can I just say, this cover, absolutely beautiful. Also, this lighting is awesome, so I think that helps too. I don't know what is going on right now. It's like late afternoon lighting, and it looks fabulous. But yeah, this cover, absolutely beautiful. And in fact, I will say, all of the covers in this series, absolutely beautiful. These are the UK editions, because I just really liked the colors of them better than the US ones. Super striking. I know I always say how a book looks is the most important thing. So this is really beautiful, and actually all three books are, I think, probably some of the most beautiful that I own. But anyway, let's get down to what actually matters, because I know while pretty books are important, it's the substance, right? What is inside is what's most important, both for people and for books. And so what is inside this one, turns out I really loved this book. I loved the first Emily Wilde book. It turned out to be like, I don't know, one of my favorites, I think, of the year, because I read it when it came out, which I think was a couple years ago now. I just really had so much fun reading it. And so admittedly, my expectations were high going into book 2, because I think I even ended up giving that one 5 stars. And actually what I did before I went and read this is I did a reread where I listened to the audiobook of the first Emily Wilde, and because I'm trying to get used to doing audiobooks, and so I'm trying to do some rereads listening to audiobooks instead. So I did that. Had a blast. I maintain that for me, my enjoyment, that was like a 5-star book. I had so much fun. And so once again, my expectations going into book 2 were indeed quite high, and I'm happy to say they were met. I do not feel like there was any kind of like a book number 2 sequel slump going on in this one. I thought that it really did a solid job in telling its own story. You know, like, this book can stand by itself and not just act as like a bridge between book 1 and book 3, which I think is hard for a lot of middle books in trilogies to do, but I think this one successfully pulls it off. Like, there's enough substance in this story where it really gives you enough. It gives you enough to enjoy it just on its own. And I did. And so what is this book even about? So in the first Emily Wilde, of course, we followed Emily as she went into, I think it was supposed to be basically like a Nordic country, and she's investigating the fairy there, or the fairies or the fae. Basically, like, she's very intrigued because it's an area that's never really been documented for fairies. So that's what we watched her do in the first one. There was a heavy emphasis, I felt, in the first one on like her relationships with the locals and how that played into the plot. In this one, I felt like there was less emphasis on the locals, but I think that it worked, because once again, we see Emily go out into the field because she's working on getting into a specific part of fairy. Bamblebees. I've always got to say that a couple times because I always think to myself, I must be saying that wrong, but indeed not. It's Wendell Bamblebee, and can I just say, one of the greatest character names of all time in terms of my enjoyment for whenever I say it or hear it, Wendell Bamblebee. She's trying to find Bamblebee's fairy to like get into, and so they end up going, Emily goes with Bamblebee, and I think it's the head of the department that she's in at, what does she teach at? Is it Cambridge? A very fancy school in the UK. I'm pretty sure it's Cambridge. I compulsively just had to check. Indeed, it's Cambridge. And I'm pretty sure that it's the guy that leads her department. So he's out in the field with her. She doesn't really want him to come, but it's a whole thing. He kind of forces himself into going on this trip. And we also see Emily's niece going on this trip into the field with her. She is now at Cambridge and is also studying, is it Dryadology, where they're like studying the fairy. And so she's on this trip with them as like an assistant to Emily. So it's more so in this book, rather than a focus on the locals where they are, more so it's like Emily and her relationship with Bamblebee and the professor and her niece that we get a lot more focus on in this one. So they end up going into the field in, I believe it's supposed to be like a similar country to, or part of like Germany or Austria, into like the mountainside over there, where she's going in to try to find a missing scholar. Apparently the scholar disappeared like decades ago, and there's some indication that the scholar might have picked up like a clue about where the door to Bamblebee's fairy is. So they're going to try to kind of like retrace the steps and find some clues to figure out what she found. So that's what we see them doing in the field during this entire story here. And there is a lot of Emily spending time in the other lands, which, if you could not tell by by the title, she spends a good amount of time dealing with fairy, and dealing with some fae that are not friendly. I would say even more unfriendly than the ones that we saw in the first book. And so we see her trying to like deal with this, and of course they have these magical abilities, and she can resist some of it because she's familiar enough with the fae. She's also got some magic items that Bamblebee keeps like sneaking into her possession. She doesn't even realize that they're magical until like she needs to use them, or you know, she realizes they're helping her and she's like, that Bamblebee, which, look, let me say, so it was very entertaining plot. I felt like I said, solid plot, similar in a way to the first one, right, where we see Emily in the field, but different enough to be really engaging. Like, the point of this book for them being in the field was different from why she went into the field in the first one. In this one, the focus was much more on her personal relationships and doing study and adventure to further those things and to help people that she cares about, rather than just focused on like, I only care about academics and like that's my only priority. I felt like we saw a little bit more of a loosened up version of Emily in this book, and it was nice to see. And like, going right off of that, can I just say I love her relationship with Bamblebee. We, you know, at the end of book one, we saw it blatantly evolve into like an outright romantic relationship, even though I think we all saw that from the very beginning. Obviously, there were indications that was the direction it was going, but Emily seemed to be out of the loop on that one for the most part until it like happened. But I'm glad to say in this one, like, it continued, but it wasn't, it was still very much a will they, won't they, because Emily has a lot of reservations, obviously, since, you know, it's been confirmed now that like Bamblebee is not human, and she's not gonna just dive right in to marrying some fairy royalty. She knows better than that, okay? She knows better than that, and she's taken her time to figure out what she wants to do. So we still had a lot of their relationship of being like the push and pull, like, I don't know, you can tell they really care about each other, but they bicker a lot. Like, they've been married for years, but they're not even married yet. It's a whole thing. In real life, I would find that very irritating, but to read about it, I find it very endearing and entertaining, and man, I am rooting for these kids. And I know Bamblebee is not a kid. He's like an old fairy guy, but like, I'm rooting for him, okay? I'm rooting for both of them. I just really had so much fun reading this book, and I think especially after having listened to the audiobook for the first one, you know, when I was reading through this, I could hear the voices for the characters like in the audiobook in my head, you know, reading or speaking in this one, and I thought it really helped to add to it. And I switched to a little bit of listening to this one through audiobook too, and I would say if you like audiobooks, these I felt like, look, I'm relatively new to audiobooks. I still prefer to physically read a book, but I felt like these were worth it if you're looking for you know, an audiobook where you're like, I don't know, these things aren't that cheap. I felt like both this one and the first one were quality audiobooks for what you're gonna get, and I just had a lot of fun, and dare I say, I had a 5-star time. I mean, the characters are so enjoyable. There's no characters that I don't like. I like them all, and that's what I want to do. I want to read a book where I'm rooting for the characters. Now, there's a lot about these characters that is not perfect. Like, Bamblebee, he does some shady things sometimes. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say he's the most ethical person around. He's not. He seems to be okay with being dishonest when he thinks he needs to be. Emily is pretty rigid. Like, she's very unflexible with things where it's like, you know, you can chill out just a little bit sometimes, and like, it's gonna be okay if you do. And I realize as I'm saying that, I'm like, man, I need to say that to myself sometimes. That is something I tell myself sometimes, where I'm like, you know, you just chill out and it'll be fine. So Emily, look, I identify with you, but like, you need to chill out just a little bit. But even that, like, even though I can see the flaws in the characters, and like, I don't know, Emily's niece is kind of annoying, and like, Emily's boss is a jerk, but like, I still liked all of the characters. I did. I liked them all. I was rooting for them all, and I love reading a book where it's like, even though the characters, you know, they've got flaws, but I like them all. I just do. And it's just a very enjoyable, pleasant way to spend my time reading a series like that. I love that the, you know, the Fae in this are more traditional, where it's not like they're just out trying to like go to bed with all the humans that they find. They're kind of mischievous, and some of them, I saw somebody mention about like traditional Fae, describing them as like mischievous or malevolent, and I would say, perfect example for traditional Fae. Like, perfect way to describe them would be that you can, like, you get, sometimes they're just like a little up to a little something, sometimes they're trying to kill you. You know, you don't know, it's the Fae, whatever, they do whatever they want to do, and that's the kind of Fae that are in this series, and I just really love that. And it's just a lot of fun. I love the format of this, where we're reading through, you know, journal entries in Emily's journal. Sometimes we'll get an entry that Bamblebee has written, which I think is enjoyable, because he's always like, oh, Emily, I'm sure if you could see me writing this, you would tell me I'm not focusing on the things that I need to be focusing on, but I'm keeping your record for you. I don't know. I just really like their relationship. I love the dynamic. I love the characters in this book. I love the adventures they go on, you know, into the countryside to try to find different fairies. I just have a good time. And can I tell you, The bar is set now so incredibly high for the conclusion of this series. I've only got one book left, and I've had such a good time with the first two that like my expectations are very high. Like, it's one of those situations where it's like I've had such a good time with the first two that I'm almost scared to read the third one because I'm like, I don't want to be disappointed. But like, good job, Heather Fawcett, okay, because you delivered 2 solid books in this series, and I am so excited to read the third one. I'm hoping to read the third one very shortly. I guess I can keep holding this up. I'm almost done. I'm hoping to read the third one shortly while the first 2 are still super fresh in my mind. So I'm thinking maybe like within the next couple weeks. I'm gonna try to read that. But I've got high hopes. And I want her to deliver a really solid ending. And it's one of those series where it's like, I just have such an enjoyable escape into the world when I'm reading this, where it's like, I wish it was so much longer than a trilogy. Cause at this point, I'm like, I would read many more books in this series. There's so many options if she would want to write more books in this series. I would read them all, but you know what? I can also understand and appreciate like authors wanting to just like quit while they're ahead. That I understand too, because sometimes then you get series that go on for just way too long and the quality goes down. And so look, I get it, but selfishly, I'm still in place from like, I could read like a ton more of these books. So that's all. That is my series reading for this video. And I don't know exactly what books are going to be in the next video that I make for my series reading. Probably the third book for Emily Wilde. If I had to guess, I will probably include that one. But the other 2, I'm not sure yet. So probably in the next couple of weeks, I will start to film for that. So I will put up like an update on my series tracker at that point. I know I've made some dents into other series that I'm reading too, so I'm hoping, oh god, but I've also started like a couple of series. Oh god, we'll see. We'll have to check the spreadsheet and we'll do some counting and we'll see where we're at. But I don't know, I feel like I've made some progress, but is it one of those things where it's like you feel like you've done a lot better than you do until you sit down and you look at brass tacks and you're like, oh, actually, like, I was just kind of treading water at best. I'm hoping it's not that. I'm hoping I made some real progress on my series, but I will look through everything, and at the start of my next video, we will look at the progress or the lack thereof at that point. I've been making a real effort to hit hard at the series that I'm looking at rather than just starting new ones. But I know Reddit Fantasy Bingo is going to be starting again soon, like imminently. As you're watching this, I am trying to figure out what books I'm going to read probably for that whole thing, because it usually ends up being like a shifting bingo card until like the last minute, and I still don't know yet if I'm gonna try to fill up the whole card. If I can maybe focus on, it's one of the things I wanted to do is with the bingo for 2025, see if I can fill a bunch of squares with sequels in like the series that I'm already reading, because that's one of the hazards with bingo, is that you end up starting so many new series because the recommendations tend to be for like the first book in a series rather than sequels that are in an established series. So we'll see what I can do. It's also in my plans. Anyway, that's all that I've got. That's all that I've got for you for this video. What do you think? Did you read any of the books that I've talked about? Do you want to read any of the books that I've talked about? Let me know what your thoughts are. And if you also have a problem with having, being in the middle of a series and you feel like the number of series you're in the middle of is just kind of out of control, because it's kind of how I feel. That's why I'm trying to focus on bringing that number down. I will probably end up continuing this series until this video series. I guess I should clarify. I'll probably end up continuing this video series until I feel like I have a very solid handle on the book series that I'm in the middle of, like getting that number way down. So anyway, that's all that I've got for you today. Thank you so much for coming by. I always appreciate it. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.